So welcome everyone. We're thrilled that you can join us today. I'm Kate Parkin, Senior Officer on the Let's Create Peer Learning Programme. And today we're talking throughout the Creative Aging Peer Learning Programme. And our session is Beyond the Bingo, how to support sustainable and co-created cultural and creative opportunities within assisted living schemes. And I should also, as a kind of just flag up, when we say assisted, we really mean the full sense of the word in terms of housing schemes, people, older people living in the community, either kind of independently within a housing scheme, different terms, extra care facilities, supported stroke assisted living. It can mean all of that, and we'll talk a bit about that further. I'm saying for audio description purposes, I'm a white middle-aged woman with a brown fringe and a Christmas jumper, and here to help at any point. The session's 2 hours, as you can see from the agenda. We're going to be hearing from 3 different programs, but 5 speakers. The first is going to be Moments of Joy from Cara McAleese, who is a freelance creative producer working with South Yorkshire Homes. 2:30 we'll hear from the Lifehouse Project, led by the University of Surrey, working with London Bubble Theatre. So that's Dr. Georgia Bowers and Marie Vickers from London Bubble Theatre. Followed by an in-conversation piece, so question and answer from South Tyneside Homes and Equal Arts about their creative programme for older people living in the housing schemes. And then we're going to have a break, about 3:05 for 10 minutes, and then come back to discuss and have breakouts and discussion where you're going to meet each other and have a bit of a chat, which is in response as well from our first inaugural session, where people would really kind of fed back that they wanted a bit more time to talk and meet each other. And then a kind of bit of a discussion at the end, and then close at 4 o'clock. And our session today is recorded, so you'll be able to hear the session afterwards. It's also on will be on our resources bank from hopefully at the end of this week, if not from the beginning of January. And you can share that with colleagues, friends, etc. Stop. Share. We also have 2 interpreters with us today, Tom and Claire, and they're going to be with us for the whole day. When we go into breakouts, if you need an interpreter and additional support for access, please just put it in the chat and we'll make sure that either Claire or Tom can join that breakout. If not, they'll come into the centre, the main room, and then join at the end. Right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cara McAleese from Moments of Joy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can people see me okay? I can see Tom and Claire. Anyway, I will crack on. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Cara. I am a white woman in her 40s. I've got curly brown hair tied up. I'm wearing a green jumper and I'm slightly camouflaged against a green background. And I'm going to talk about Moments of Joy, which is a participatory creative programme that happens at South Yorkshire Housing Association Extra Care Schemes. And it's been running on and off actually for about 12 years, but I'm going to talk about the last 5 years at Extra Care Schemes where we've managed to deliver more regular creative activity. We also work in mental health residential schemes, but I'm going to focus on the extra care schemes because of the topic today. So I'm just going to share my presentation, hopefully. Right, looks like you can see that. So the presentation is mainly images, so I will just talk over them and explain them. This one, so South Yorkshire Housing Association's mission for residents is to settle at home, live well and realise their potential. And we think that creativity can play a large part in this. So Moments of Joy, this phase of Moments of Joy started in 2020 at the beginning of the first lockdown. And it really was a response to the pandemic. It was funded through Age Better in Sheffield, which at the time was housed under SYHA, South Yorkshire Housing Association. And we started it as a means of reducing isolation and increasing feelings of well-being and keeping people connected through creativity. And then as restrictions changed and gradually lifted, we worked towards building more creative confidence in more sort of participatory sessions. I'm just going to share this. This is a sort of throwback lockdown photo from Christmas 2020. It's a seasonal moment, but it's just a real reminder of the kind of stuff that was happening and how art had to be really responsive and agile to the changing situations. So we kept changing as restrictions changed. When we could, we moved inside and did corridor gigs with people standing in their doorways and corridor dance sessions. When things were harder, we actually put films of our artists on tea trolleys with tea and cake and went round to individual doorways. And we even played live music down the phone to people. Moving on, this shot is actually from when restrictions lifted a bit and when we moved into a more sort of participatory phase. So we built on that creativity and we built on input from residents. And as restrictions lifted more, we got to do poetry and song making and a participant-led project based around maps and stories, which then turned into a soundscape and also a dance piece and film about that. And this image is actually from the screening of that dance film. And we used it as an opportunity to build relationships with staff, with residents, build relationships with artists and arts organisations locally, and as a platform to sort of test and learn more what works. Over that 2 years, we had really high levels of engagement. We delivered a lot of work. And you can see from those 260 sessions, that we worked across sort of 9 to 10 different schemes. And that was brilliant for us in terms of building staff engagement and understanding of the benefits of creative work. And it helped us leverage microgrants and then local funding and an Arts Council project grant to move on to the next phase of activity. So the next phase of activity had a slightly different focus, and that happened for about a year, over 2023 to 2024. It was smaller scale than the last couple of years, and we used it really to focus on what artist collaborations could look like within extra care schemes. So pairing artists from different practices, so a theatre artist and a visual artist, for example, and working with residents to see what came out of that, and also artist development, as both of those things bring really, really exciting creativity. We also had a focus on older artists. So right from the recruitment, we were very, very explicit at how we were keen to hear from older artists or people who defined themselves as older artists. And especially within the artistic development strand of the work, it sets a really great example for residents of what's possible, but also it meant that we could work with a local dance company, over 50s dance company called Third Bite Dance, whose members actually took on and led delivery of some of the sessions. So there was a really nice strand there. And also within that, we were able to involve project staff, so scheme staff, in the recruitment process, which was so useful and I hadn't done before. I highly recommend doing that wherever possible. We went into this phase of activity with more of an awareness of what the challenges are and how we might remove as many barriers as possible, both physically and of perception of creativity as possible. So what this looked like to us, I've got an example here. This is a close-up shot of quite a large-scale installation which is hanging in the main space, the main atrium of one of the schemes now. And we looked at wanting to make sure that everyone who wanted to could take part. and recognising that different people have different barriers to activities. So some people might not be able to take part in something visual that uses a lot of dexterity, but might be fine with songwriting, and vice versa. So with this, we worked with a series of different artists, and we created an installation which features glasswork and ceramics. And these pieces were based on a co-created story that residents made with a theatre maker. And that in turn was sparked by group songs about the sea. So there was a whole kind of trail of different art forms to make it. And with this as well, we focused on what was important to residents when we were looking at evaluation. So before we even started sessions, we worked with residents to hear from them about what they thought important outcome measures would be. And from there, we were able to work with a researcher to help us design an evaluation framework using those outcomes and bring that back to participants. And now we've got that framework that we can use for hopefully for future projects. I think there's a couple of quotes. I don't know whether you can see the quotes on here, but I can always share them afterwards. We were really lucky that we collected artist logs and also staff and participant feedback every week at these sessions, and all the sort of qualitative data that we collected from there really demonstrated that we were matching those outcomes, which was brilliant. So moving forward to looking to the future, this photo doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just my favourite photo from last year, where though we were working with a theatre maker, we had someone come in and do sort of fashion photography shoot as part of the project, and I just loved the quote. That I don't take a bad picture for someone who's nearly 100. Just really demonstrates that kind of that feeling of joy. So looking forward over this year and hopefully next, we're looking at what a sustainable model might look like. To do this, rather than working across lots of schemes, we're going back and trialling it in one scheme. And we've been planning with residents around specific creative events, each one featuring a slightly different art form, all chosen by them. And those events will have wraparound social activity attached to them that the artists will be part of as well. So within those social spaces, which will happen less frequently, so rather than intensive weekly activity, we'll do maybe every other month a larger scale creative social. Within that, we hope to build the momentum with residents to help them decide what they'd like to do as spin-off activity around that and start taking ownership themselves. They've discussed debating clubs, music quizzes, film clubs, book clubs. So the ideas are there. And within that structure as well, we want to provide some planning and marketing support working with residents so that they can get their own projects going. And this takes learning from a project called Sparks, which was part of Age Better in Sheffield activity, which supported older adults to put on their own events. And we learnt that budget is really important, but actually the support with event planning and marketing is really, really important for people as well. So moving on to challenges and what we're looking at challenges are sort of going forward. So we're at the point now of the challenge of developing a sustainable model, whether we can do it at scale. And I think it is possible, and I think some of the other speakers will speak to that, but it's the tipping point of moving from short-term project activity to a longer-term model, which is the tricky moment. And then the next thing, people's perception of who art is for, or their own individual perceptions of ability, can really affect engagement. Men are harder to engage and engage in different ways. People always talk about stepping out of their comfort zone. And on top of people perhaps having age or health related barriers, this can be tricky for engagement, even when the enthusiasm is there. And then staff capacity. So by staff, I mean housing scheme staff. People are really busy, and we're asking them to support something on top of their day-to-day job. There might be issues with staff retention or understaffing, so having that kind of consistent face or consistent point of contact can be difficult if you're coming in from outside as a freelancer. And often staff confidence to sort of continue the work. And then it's this thing about momentum. This quote shows us it's people need someone to come in from outside just to keep the momentum going, to get stuff started. Then costs, for me, it's essential to pay artists fairly, and that includes paying for time to facilitate support or reflection for freelancers, time for artist development and collaboration. And this directly impacts the quality. It's a good thing, but it costs money. And then finally, there's a thing about quality, it's maybe the wrong way of putting it, but often projects like this can talk about, oh, well, when we go, we will skill up key workers and we'll make a toolkit. And I don't think this works for specialised arts activities. We shouldn't expect someone who's already really busy to suddenly be able to write songs or make a film during their working day as well. But that's not to say that people don't have creative talent, and that perhaps some kind of creative social model could work with artist touch points coming in less regularly. And then I think, well, I'm nearly there. So just going on to the opportunities, I mean, we hope that we'll be able to continue this programme and build a sustainable model, but I think there are so many opportunities with this kind of work, and probably most people here will know what they are. But when you go into a housing scheme, you meet a whole set of people whose perceptions of art or as themselves as creative people can potentially change through doing this work. And you can provide a space which supports well-being through building confidence and social connection and skills development and that pride and agency in creativity. And it's a space for artist development. It's a new way of thinking about how you might work, how you might collaborate with other artists. It's a great space to work with older artists as role models. I think there's something that we tried last time but didn't really tap into as much, that all of these spaces are very physically accessible spaces, and an artist who might face physical barriers in other community settings wouldn't face those barriers in these settings. So I think that's a really nice thing to think about. We've been told by project staff, by scheme staff, that it supports them to connect with residents and have conversations that might not happen in the same way in other contexts. And then finally, it's creative provision for people who might not be able to get out to access it otherwise. And these people have huge amounts of lived experience to bring to a really creative space. So there's one last quote there, which I really enjoy. I think that's it. There's find out more. I've got videos and images to share if anyone wants to. And I think there's probably time for questions. I don't know, Kate.
Yes, we have. We have got a few minutes for questions, at least 5 minutes for questions. So feel free to put it in the chat or speak to Cara directly.
I'll stop sharing the screen in just a second, and then I'll be able to see people a bit more. There might not be any questions either.
People can hold on to those questions anyway, and then feel free as well to think about them, consider it, and talk about that as well in the breakouts and feedback, or at the end of our speakers' talks. Right, thank you very much, Cara.
Thank you.
Really great, insightful to see what's going on in South Yorkshire, and also about the impact and support for creatives as well, about really about all those wider consideration points. Thank you very much. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marie Vickers from London Bubble Theatre. I'm just going to put you as a spotlight, Marie. Replace spotlight and spotlight. And Dr. Georgia Bowers, who's programme lead for Applied Theatre, Community Theatre at the University of Surrey. Just find you to make sure it's got. There you go, Georgia. I'm just gonna add you to your big. And brilliant, you're there. I'll remove my spotlight. Thank you very much.
Okay, so off we go. Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Dr. Georgia Bowers. I am a white, cisgendered 34-year-old woman with dark brown hair, wearing a grey jumper today and a pair of glasses. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, the wonderful Marie Vickers. Over to you, Marie, to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'll just describe myself. I am a white, cisgendered, 40-year-old woman. We're also with brown hair, brown glasses, and a grey jumper.
We should have worn different clothes.
We really should.
But but alas, here we are. So today we're going to be talking to you about the Lifehouse project. So just bear with me 1 second as I just share my screen. And I've got a video, so I'm making sure that we've got sound as well. Okay. Oh. Okay, so I can't see anybody. So if someone could just say, yes, we can share, so we can see your screen, that'd be fab.
We can see your screen. Brilliant, Georgia.
Oh, all right, brilliant. So here we go. So the Lifehouse project, which is the subject that we're talking about today, is an applied theatre research initiative that was started and is led by the University of Surrey. It involves myself, and I'm from the Guildford School of Acting, which, if you're not familiar, it's one of the leading drama conservatoires here in the UK, and it's part of the University of Surrey. And I run this research project alongside my colleagues, Professor Andy King and Dr. Richard Green. And essentially, the Lifehouse project is interested in how can we use theatre and activities such as storytelling, character development and improvisation to investigate the wants, needs, concerns and desires of older LGBTQ plus people living in the United Kingdom, and in this project's case predominantly living in London. Now, we know through existing research that a number of members of the queer community have a series of anxieties and concerns around ageing, and in particular, ageing within institutional spaces. So that could be a care home, a nursing home, a sheltered housing unit, or even having care in their own private community dwellings. And the fears that exist around that is encountering prejudice or abuse due to being a member of the LGBTQ plus community. Now, previous studies have adopted a more traditional academic approach in terms of surveys and questionnaires. However, with the Lifehouse project, with my background as a theatre maker and someone who specialises in creative ageing, we want to see what happens if we just go into a space and we make theatre. So in 2024, we ran a pilot project where we did exactly that over a 6-week period. We were privileged to work with a space called Tonic Housing. Now, Tonic Housing is one of the UK's first ever LGBTQ plus affirmative retirement communities. So during the summer months in 2024, we went in and we had these 90-minute theatre workshops. And what we discovered is that theatre sows a very fertile soil for stories of anxiety and concerns to emerge. And over that 6-week period, we discovered that 100% of the participants who took part had concerns, anxiety regarding adult social care and housing in later life. And we had stories such as one person knew somebody who lived at Tonic Housing and their partner had gone into a care home and had encountered horrific physical and emotional abuse, such as staff putting cigarettes out on this individual because he was gay. So that happened in London, and that happened just a couple of years ago. So these concerns are very recent. And so what we did was we created a performance and we shared that performance with a series of industry professionals. And alongside these creative workshops, we had interviews with the participants and they shared these quotes, which include, quote, "I was in hospital for 8 weeks and there was no way I would have come out. I was scared that something bad might happen, especially when I was so vulnerable," end quote. We have another quote here which references the story that I just shared with you, which says, "The staff refused to recognise his relationship because it was with a man. Cigarette burns from the carers were found on him," end quote. And I would argue anybody who's worked in a care home or a nursing home will know that these are highly moderated spaces. Any form of cut or bruise should be reported and logged. So the fact that this individual was having cigarettes put out on them suggests that more than one person in the care environment knew that this abuse was taking place. And then the final quote was, "Fear takes the fear away from talking about these things and brings us all together to share how we feel and to get people listening." So what we discovered in the pilot project, that theatre was more than a tool just for fun, for joy, for entertainment, or perhaps to waste a few hours in the afternoon. It was actually an opportunity to continue their activism which many of the participants had been doing all of their lives. So it was a great success, the pilot, and we thought, well, we can't possibly stop there. So myself, Andy and Richard decided, right, we need to go for some more funding. And luckily we secured funding at the University of Surrey from the ESRC Impact Acceleration Account. And we devised this plan. So we worked in partnership with London Bubble Theatre Company, where we co-created theatre workshops. And I know Marie's going to speak about this in a moment, so I won't say too much. But what I will show at this point is we wanted to use these theatre workshops to co-create a script alongside older LGBTQ plus people living in London. And our hope was that this script would identify what are the concerns of this community in relation to care and housing, what are the desires for them, but also what are the potential solutions? What can be done? How can we create change? So then after that, the next step was to engage with an animator called Izzy, who is absolutely fantastic, and to take that script that had been co-created and to develop it into a short animation. We then took that animation and we piloted it in one housing and one care provider in London, and it was used as part of their ongoing EDI staff training. So staff came in and they witnessed this animation and they began to have discussions around it. What were the themes that emerged? What were the issues that were taking place? What role could they play as an individual and as a team and as a sector to create a more LGBTQ plus inclusive environment? And then we evaluated the impact of it. So I'd like to share that animation with you now.
Research tells us that older LGBTQ plus people have quite a few concerns about their housing and care needs. They are worried about discrimination from both service providers and other residents.
This animation explores three people's experiences of aging, care and home.
Meet Ritu. Ritu's home is her sanctuary. It's a home she built with her late partner, Alicia, a place filled with love for 30 years.
Meet Peter. He recently moved into a care home because of health needs that his family just couldn't meet.
Meet Rose. Rose is a trans woman who moved into sheltered housing with her wife 5 years ago.
I was really worried about the idea of carers coming into my house after my partner died, but knew I needed help when I was diagnosed with dementia. The first person they sent was brilliant. She liked looking at photos of me and my partner and asked questions about our life together.
I've lived alone most of my life. The only man I ever loved was married. The biggest change for me is people coming in and out of my room, just letting themselves in. There's no privacy.
Now we've moved, I can live the way I've always wanted to. We got all kinds of abuse at our old place, verbal and physical. Towards the end, neither of us were leaving the house.
After Elena left, I got sent a different person every week.
You've got a lot of photos of your sister.
What was your husband's name?
You're always in jeans, darling. Let's put a nice dress on you.
What's this flag doing here?
I don't get lesbians. How do they do it?
I told them to get lost, and now apparently I'm the difficult one.
I never thought I'd have someone else to bathe me. I told one of the carers about my handsome Ron once, and then the comments started.
Don't touch me. I'm not like you.
I'm going to undress you now. Don't get too excited.
There's no place in heaven for your type.
We spoke to the staff when we first moved in, which was hard because I'm very private.
Are there other mental health issues we should be aware of?
So which toilets do you use? Do you need a special toilet?
Doesn't your wife mind?
So if you don't take your medication, will you turn back into a man?
They meant well, but it made me very uncomfortable.
I don't want to be difficult or have to hide my identity.
I want to live my life in peace, be supported, to do more of the things I enjoy.
I want to be accepted for who I am, and for other people to understand that there's more to me than being trans.
You can make older adults from the LGBTQ+ community feel safer if you
Wear a rainbow badge.
Introduce yourself using pronouns and ask other people which ones they use.
Learn about LGBTQ+ history.
Instead of using terms such as guys or ladies and gentlemen, use more inclusive language such as friends and everyone.
Acknowledge that people's identities are diverse.
Try to understand what people have been through.
Treat people with dignity and respect.
Everyone has the right to feel safe and cared for in their own home.
Join us to be part of that change.
So we then decided that we wanted to obviously measure the impact of the animation as part of this EDI training. So we did two things. We did a survey, a questionnaire, straight after the animation was viewed. And what we discovered is that 95% of the staff would recommend the animation as a training tool. 90% reported improved understanding of LGBTQ+ terminology, and 90% increased their confidence in providing care and support. We then returned 6 weeks later and did another survey/questionnaire and also interviews with senior members of staff. And we learned this: 100% had an increased understanding of LGBTQ+ needs. 95% reported greater confidence in providing LGBTQ+ inclusive care, and 95% said that the training continued to influence their work. So I think it's fair to say that these are really substantive evidence here, and is showing the impact and is demonstrating how theatre and animation and ultimately storytelling can create change. And we feel as a research team that that change emerged because the characters developed empathy amongst the staff. As they watched the animation, they became invested in them and their journey and wanted to support those characters, which is a really powerful tool. So I would now like to hand over to my colleague Marie, who will talk you through how on earth did we do it and create this script. So over to you, Marie.
Thanks, Georgia. So Georgia approached us quite early on to talk to see whether we'd be able to hold the process and lead the participants from nothing, from a blank page to a script that we would be able to share with the animator. And so, some things are popping up on my screen now. So the group came together. 5 of them knew each other. 4 were residents from Tonic Housing. 1 was a friend of Tonic. 1 was a participant from Other London Bubble Projects who had spoken very openly about their sexual orientation. And so I invited to be part of the process because I thought they might benefit from sharing that space in a targeted project with people with similar lived experience. And 1 person never joined the group activities, but we met them separately, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So they came together. We had to play some games to build a sense of community amongst the group, and to kind of feel like an ensemble on a shared task. And we talked a lot about what housing and care meant to the individuals in the room, being really mindful that not everybody's experience is the same, and it can't be, depending on who we are and where we're from, and the different factors that influence who we are. And within the group, we had people of different genders with varying degrees of health. Health's very different in the group, from different ethnic backgrounds, of different ages. The stipulation for being in the group was being 55 and older, and there is perhaps a 30-year span within that. So we were working intergenerationally. We looked at gender, we looked at relationships, we looked at whether or not they were parents, all the different things, and how what that means, and how we view housing and care. And then we did a very simple test to create some poetry together, where we just listed what home meant to us, what housing meant to us, what care meant to us. And they didn't make the final edit, but I think that's part of the process. It was a really nice way to collaborate creatively with a group to work together. Then we moved on to developing the characters, which the group adored doing, and there was so much depth that they brought to those people. We were very clear from the beginning that we wouldn't be spotlighting any one person's truth, but that we would be using a little bit of truth from all of our lives to inform a fictional set of characters that we hoped would be representative of real life people and circumstances. And I think it was really interesting to see how people contributed and what they drew on to make sure that those characters felt realistic. And some of it clearly was very personal, and some of it they really had fun with the imagination side of it as well, or combining what they knew to be true and putting a twist on it. The script, some of it was written in the sessions, but a lot of it was written outside by myself and Lil, the assistant practitioner, who mainly because we had really strict time restrictions and we had to edit lots and lots. And Georgia, of course, was involved in the edit as well. Then when we came back to the sessions, we were able to sort of distribute the lines and work out who was playing who, and who would voice which character, who would play the kind of the bullying voices that we hear in there. And then really excitingly for the group, the final part that they did was record the voices. So we hadn't yet seen the characters physically, we hadn't seen any of the bit that you just saw visually, but that they recorded the voices first, and then the animator designed the characters based on what the group said. So we talked a little bit about what they should look like, how we could continue to be inclusive and diverse with representation. And then finally we came back and we got to see it all together, the voices and the images, and that was a really special moment to watch that first screening, which isn't the same as the one that you saw here. We saw it at a few different stages along the way. That was really special, I think, for the group to see it come together and to see the things they talked about in previous workshops be embodied on a screen. For example, we talked at depth about the gay character liking sport, and anyone in that group will know lots of things from their backstory and how that's taken shape throughout their life. But then just to see it kind of appear as it's something that they enjoy doing and cheering, and team colours was a really nice nod to to the care that went into the creation of the characters to make sure that they were well-rounded and realistic. Next slide, please, Georgia.
Okay, just one sec.
Thank you. So yeah, as I mentioned before, we talked, one of the initial exercises we did was sort of creating list poems, asking people to talk about what housing is to them, what home is to them, what care is to them. And an initial idea was that this would open the film, but it didn't meet time restrictions. However, what came out was really interesting because actually we were working with a very intelligent, very analytical group who brought quite a lot of political opinions to the space, and looked at housing really objectively, looked at home really objectively, looked at care really objectively, had quite an international gaze over it as well. So we talked about different cultural influences and how care and housing differs in this country to in some of the other countries they've lived in. Thanks. Next question, please. Sorry, next slide. And then a key part of my practice when working with community groups, and I work with lots of different underrepresented communities, including children and young people with experience of the care system perhaps, or justice system. This to me is a bit of a fail-safe method for creating a character when you don't have a lot of time, but that you want everybody to contribute to. And I'm going to hold up some of the, oh, you can't see that now, but I've got the original people that we drew. So we offered an outline of the body, and the group's task was to fill it with characteristics or experiences that would make a person real. So I'm going to ask us if we could just do something very similar now so that we get a sense of how that worked in the space. I'm going to unblur my background. I'm going to ask you to imagine the owner of this mug that I'm holding up to my screen right now. Okay, all we know is that they own this mug at the moment, but together as a group, we're going to find some things out about this person. So the only rule is if somebody types in the chat that they're tall, somebody later can't write that they're short. Okay, we build, we don't contradict what goes before, but just very quickly, I'm going to invite you to write something in the chat, a fact about the owner of the mug. So that might be something that they like, something that they dislike. It might be something physical about them. It might be something emotional about them. It might be something about their presence or their past. They'll need a name. They'll need an age. Be brave. We're not going to do this for very long. I'm going to give you less than a minute to write some characteristics so that we can co-create a character. Thank you. They're a cat person, they're divorced, they're 76. They own a caravan. They used to live in India. They're smiley. They're a tea drinker, milk, no sugar. Very important to stipulate. They have dyed black hair. They just happen to pick up a grey mug. They wear contact lenses rather than glasses. Oh, and the mug is part of a very large mug collection. Interesting. Collector, possibly. They tend to informality. They're single. They like trying new foods. And they like to swim. Okay, thank you. Unless there's one in progress. If you're typing at the moment, please carry on. But if not, I'm going to... Thank you. So already we've got a 76-year-old who lives alone, who's divorced, who has a large collection of mugs and likes to swim, has dyed black hair, used to live in India, enjoys trying new foods. And that feels rich. So in the workshops, we did a very similar thing. And then we continued to interrogate what housing situation they were in, what care looked like in their life, the relationships they had in their life, the history they had in their life, to create and to create the bones of the script. We improvised.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that was really how the characters grew, and we're happy to talk more about any other in the question and A, the Q&A bit in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. So now you've got a sense of how we actually did it. You might be thinking, well, what's next? So what we're hoping with the Lifehouse project is to move it forward. And what we would like to do is to create a freestanding online training program where we build on the animation and we have other materials that perhaps go a little bit deeper into those characters and really stands on its own in terms of, well, what can we do? What is the support? We acknowledge that that animation is only just over 4 minutes long, so it's quite light touch. So we'd like to go much deeper and be much more rigorous with it and have a much broader rollout. So that's what we're hoping to do next. So if there's anybody who is interested, anybody who'd like to know more about the project, or perhaps knows of different ways that other spaces might be able to support it, please do get in contact. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Georgia and Marie. That was absolutely amazing. And as we can see in the comments as well, there's some lovely positive comments about thank you. It was really insightful, really moving. And Sally Gibson's already asked as well, is this available for other organisations, councils and housing associations to use as a training tool?
Possibly. So what we'd like to do, if we were to go down, so we do want it to go further, but we would have to step in some sort of form of agreement. It is available for people to view on our website. All they have to do is just enter their details so we can track where it's going and who's viewing it. But we would be really open to speak to anybody who might want to do a more formal partnership, and as you suggest, roll it out in different settings.
Great, thank you. And if anyone has any other questions, please, as I said it before, just feel free to put in the chat or wait to the end after the break where we're going to be having a discussion. Thank you so much. I'll just remove the spotlight off you both. Go back into obscurity. And we are now going to meet with Douglas Hunter, Chief Exec of Equal Arts, and then we find Lindsay Mothersill, who is assistant housing manager at Housing Plus in South Tyneside. There she is. I'll make you big. And I'll add a spotlight for myself as well, so you can see me. So for this session, we're just going to have a kind of conversation.
Sorry to interrupt, Kate, but I think you've dropped the spotlight off myself and Claire as well. As
Thanks,
interpreters.
Tom. Let me find you. Add spotlight. That's great. And I'll put Claire as well. I think it just replaced it when I was adding spotlight. Thanks for bringing that up. I've lost Claire. Might see if my colleague Lucy can add. Oh, there she is. Got you. Brilliant. We're all on. So yes, for this section, we're just introducing Lindsay and Douglas for a programme in the northeast of England. Hi, Lindsay. Hello, Douglas.
Hi, hello everybody. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. And we have a film to show as well. But we're going to do a quick kind of 10 minutes, 15 minutes kind of questions, and then hopefully show the film at the end, which is very Christmassy. So it's it's very fitting. So I just thought, would you like to just introduce yourself a little bit about your role very briefly, and also talk about the aim for the programme, a summary of the programme.
Want me to start, Doug? Yes. Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Mothersill and I'm the Assistant Manager for the Housing Plus team for South Tyneside Council. We was formerly what you would have traditionally known as sheltered housing accommodation, or but we're very much working hard to get rid of that label, which is why we rebranded as Housing Plus, because it was important for people to not think that we were managing care homes, basically, because there's so much more to it than that. We've got 29 schemes across the borough, which is a mixture of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroomed flats or apartments, or standalone bungalows, depending on the different scheme. We rehouse individuals over the age of 55, and I think the oldest residents are probably 105. So it's a massive generational gap, obviously with a lot of different individual needs and wants and requirements. We deliver the service 365 days a year. Some people think working a Christmas Day is a hardship, but in all honesty, it's probably one of my favourite shifts, because I know that I might well be the only person that individual gets to speak to over the whole of Christmas, and that genuinely is very, very heartwarming and worthwhile. It's a lovely shift to do. So while you're all preparing your sprouts and your turkey this year, spare a little thought or raise a glass of fizz to us Housing Plus officers in South Tyneside. Massive challenges because of the age range. Doug?
Hi, yes, my name's Douglas Hunter. I'm Chief Executive of Equal Arts. We're an arts organisation based in Newcastle, and we work creatively to improve the lives of older people. We have been working with South Tyneside Housing Plus schemes for probably about 2.5 years. The original kind of pot of money was from Know Your Neighbourhood, a DCMS fund. We delivered that over about a 2-year period, and that fund was around reducing loneliness for older people and increasing volunteering. So we originally worked in 4 Housing Plus schemes, and kind of over the past recent period have concentrated on 3 schemes. And it's been about using creativity to get people involved, to deliver creative programs on a regular basis, essentially to reduce social isolation, boost people's confidence and mood, etc., and increase volunteering in terms of their sense of role and responsibility within each of their Housing Plus schemes and their immediate communities.
Wonderful. So can you tell us how this partnership came about, and you know, in terms of what's been delivered so far in terms of the programme? Lindsay?
We were approached by Doug, I think, Doug, you're right, about 3 years ago. And at the time it was all we can do this together and that together, and I admit it did seem too good to be true, and it's not been easy to get to where we've got to. I'm sure you'll agree, Doug. But getting the tenants on board has been really tricky. But we're certainly marching on, and it's becoming very well embedded now.
I think what we tried to do was offer a series of taster sessions responding to residents' kind of requests and interests. And initially there was quite a bit of, there was some dance and movement, there was some music, there was kind of visual arts and crafts. So there was a kind of a different offer in each of the different schemes. And it's, you know, it's fascinating seeing the character of each scheme and the residents coming to the fore. So where Lindsay works specifically, the residents there, which we're going to look at specifically, are very much into dance and movement and quite a fun and vibrant, energetic group to work with. Patrick Kane House, another scheme where we worked with, are very much kind of, they wanted to kind of taste the program. They wanted to explore different types of a creative offer. And then a third scheme that we worked with, Fernie Hoff Hall, they have very much explored kind of arts and crafts. And, you know, we're very much kind of building on their program of work and the offer to their residents.
That's great. And how have the tenants, your residents, engaged in the programme? What are their experiences? I should also say, Lindsay, earlier, which was just lovely, you mentioned about, you said for you, in terms of your experience, you said, actually, this has been a real pleasure because it's not just been a project. It hasn't just come in and disappeared within a year. It's still embedded within South Tyneside.
I think that I love the Beyond the Bingo title, because that is really it in a nutshell. When I first worked for Housing Plus, I came from the area housing team, and I didn't get what it was all about, obviously, at first. And a lot of people do think that we just sit around making Christmas cards and playing bingo. But actually, that's just, there's so much more to it than that. And just because somebody's over the age of 55, excuse me, doesn't mean they want to be building on new experiences. It's the biggest challenge was getting the residents to engage in the first place, because we've not got to forget that they're giving up their time and trying to get the interest in basically convincing them to try and have a go. Because that was important that they were engaging, because that's explained to them that if they didn't sort of have a suck it and see kind of attitude, the funding would stop. So it was up to them to sort of have their buy-in. So the activities have been amazing for them. It just makes us so proud to be part of it. And I think there's massive benefits to the staff as well, because I've seen people it gives us a chance to sort of work with the residents side by side rather than being the officer and the resident. So getting to know the residents better. But us as officers, it's been a really important and worthwhile use of our time to bond with residents. Plus, who doesn't like the artwork that we get to do at work?
That's great.
I think kind of working with the residents and bringing their ideas to fruition. You know, they've certainly Patrick Kane, they've worked on stained glass, they've done ceramics, they've done various kind of arts and crafts, a bit of creative writing. One of the residents at Patrick Kane is a practicing artist himself, and so he facilitated a number of the sessions. And then he's gone to Fernie Hoff Hall, the other scheme, and facilitated their watercolour and painting sessions that they've been delivered there. And it's kind of trying to find that overarching creative trajectory for each scheme, each project. So certainly for Fernie Hoff Hall, what they've been talking about, what has evolved out of their ideas, is there's an exhibition coming up, which is a Monet exhibition in South Tyneside Museum. So they've been looking at Monet pictures, paintings, and the idea of so South Shields, South Tyneside, you've got the coast, you've got the riverside, you've got rural areas, you've got urban areas, and to be inspired by Monet paintings to explore their locality, whether it's seascapes, riverscapes, whether it's railway stations, whether it's haystacks, etc., to use Monet as an inspiration for them to create their own work and explore their own communities is a theme that is evolving, and they're hoping to kind of take forward into next year. But in contrast, Birch Grove, so Lindsay can talk about the residents there and the singing and music, or the dance and movement activities that they've been involved with.
This is actually the second video that they've put together, and it was very difficult for them to. It's kind of how you sort of badge it. It started off as seated exercise classes, and they built on that with more sort of concentrating on balance. And little did they know it, but it actually turned into this most amazing video for Christmas, I think 2 years ago. So if I was to ask them to come along, would you like to come with singing and dance and music session? I would get a no, a resounding no from them all. They wouldn't want to do that. So a little bit of gentle persuasion on our part, and us also getting involved. So kind of a little bit of hand holding at the start until I get to build that rapport with the different artists. And then I think yesterday was the final, or the first viewing of the video that we're going to share. And to be able to sit with the residents, so we're all different in their own rights, and an artist who is a fairly new artist to work with them, the older community, was just beautiful to watch. And it's heartwarming. They're all very proud of what they've achieved. If like I say, if I'd sold it to them from the beginning as a dance, you're going to make a music video, I wouldn't have seen them for dust. They would have been away. But it's been involved. They've structured it so they sit at the end of the sessions and have a cuppa. They all take it in turns to bring different cakes, so it becomes something more social. And it's getting them out and getting them involved. We're hoping, Doug, to, as you know, to bring the groups together in some way. Looking forward, which I think we've made the kind of. We've kind of started that by a joint meeting with the 3 different groups at one site, and Doug and myself. And that's kind of formed, that went better than what I could possibly imagine it would, because they were all immediately sharing ideas. Well, we do this, or well, we do that, in different ways of working. And so to bring them together to increase the numbers, which is obviously the sessions are more enjoyable the more people are involved, but letting them know what goes on in other parts of the borough. So hopefully empowering them to make decisions between the 3 groups, and whoever else would like to join in is going to make a huge difference to us for 2026, I think.
And I think we're working towards that sustainability model where each of the three schemes are determining their own programme, and are working towards a session every week. So they've got that consistency, week in, week on week consistency, but it's also there for a 12 months, so they know the trajectory, and then the sustainability model would be to have a year-on-year programme. So there's each individual scheme, but then there's a kind of umbrella overview of South Tyneside Council is supporting it, and then Equal Arts as a creative agent organisation supporting it as well. So there's a layered sustainability model in place. So there should always be some funding, some programme activity which we can utilise and build on.
That's fabulous. It's great to hear about the kind of sustainable kind of future, what next, but also about ensuring that everyone has a say and involved, all partners, especially.
Sorry, Kate, it's allowing us to, as officers, to take a little bit of a step back, because we've kind of done the hand holding and this is where we are. And it's just heartwarming to see that they're coming up with all their own ideas. They want to now meet as the 3 groups together. We've decided on a quarterly basis with a view to them producing their own newsletter to give to other residents and other schemes to let them know what's going on. And that in itself is reducing my task, because I don't now have to produce the newsletter, so they're taking the ownership. and doing what they want, so which will hopefully have a knock-on effect with the rest of the borough.
That's
Should
great.
we watch the video?
Yeah, let's watch the video.
Yes.
So in terms of the video, what we're going to see, this is at Birch Grove, one of the housing schemes. And it was Christmas time, possibly 2 years at the beginning of the project. So you've done a lot since. And this came about as well because as you said, they started with seated exercise. Nothing, that in terms of it met their expectation, perception, but then built on that. So it's a kind of singing and writing music. And I'm going to see if Lucy can share that film.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
You can see the personalities shining through. Can you see this now?
Hold me, give you all that you need. Wrap your love around me. You're so excited, I can feel you getting hotter. Oh baby, I'll take you down. I'll take you down. Where no one's ever gone before. And if you want more, if you want more, jump, go my love, jump in, and feel my touch. Jump, you want to take my kisses in the night. Jump, go my love, jump. I know my heart can make you happy. Jump in, you know these arms can fill you up. Jump, if you want to take my kisses in the night. Jump, go my love. You told me I'm the only woman for you. Nobody does you like I do. Then make a move before you try to come much further. We're walking in the air. We're floating in the moonlit sky. No people far below are sleeping as we fly. I'm holding very tight. I'm riding in the jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing up bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells chiming, jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing in Jingle Bell Square. In the Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad. Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, Feliz Navidad, próspero año y felicidad. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas from the bottom of my heart. The town. Oh, let's go. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is
Merry
coming
Christmas!
to town. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming.
Oh, that's fab. Just joy. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. They look like they had a great time as well. And that dog, the starring role as well. Oh, thank you. That's put me in the spirit as well of Christmas. And I've had a request whether we can share that on our platform as well, if that's possible. Great. Thank you. Right, everyone, we're going to go into a break. Unless anyone would like a quick question with Doug and Lindsay now. I know there's a little bit in the chat, but we could probably save those until after the break, so we can go straight into a break and meet back in 10 minutes. So can we say 3:20 in 8 minutes would be great. 3:20. Lovely. See you soon. See you shortly, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hope you've managed to grab a cuppa. Right. Well, for the next part of today's meeting session, we are going to have some breakout groups. So this is an opportunity just to chat amongst yourself and do for real. I know that some people have to leave or have left early, but just to come in and join and really inspired from the speakers and projects we've shared early today. So now an opportunity to talk about if you've explored creative practice, working with older people, living in housing schemes, what does it look like, barriers and opportunities, and any ideas as well. That would be wonderful. We're going to put you in like smaller groups anyway, so there should be an opportunity to talk. It'd be great if you give feedback at the end. We'll come back about 3:45. So if you have got someone scribbling away and they don't mind, if you could nominate someone to be a spokesperson for your little group, that would be wonderful. And as we mentioned earlier, we have 2 British Sign Language interpreters with us today. They'll probably stay in the main room with myself and Lucy, but if you need them, please just let us know, and they can come into your group. Right. So just a conversation, and I think Lucy is just putting you into groups now. That's it. So you might need to press join to join your group. We've got three rooms. We'll see you shortly at 2:45.
Would you like to pause the recording?